Good evening, everyone. You're listening to the Sam and Dan Show, WXJM Harrisonburg, 88.7 on your FM dial.
Every Wednesday, 6 to 7. Is this on? All right, it's on.
Yeah, now it's on.
Okay, awesome.
Sweet.
So, with the formalities out of the way, everybody, Dan and I just got back from a pretty long trip.
Yeah.
Out in, out in the Scandinavian area.
Mm-hmm.
So we were doing a little Nordic trekking, and
we were doing a little bit of we sort of got contracted, I guess you could say, by so some sort of organization. We can't name drop when we're in here, because we are still under contract. But we were tasked with, I guess you could say, documenting Yeti sightings and just keeping track of migration patterns and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. A little scatological research.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
The good stuff.
Sam's an expert in that field. He's truly alone in that field.
Right.
No one is at his level. Anyways, we aren't going to be talking about the research we did, though.
Right. No, that's unimportant. That's something for another time.
Yeah.
Yeti populations are healthy.
Mm-hmm.
They are maintaining stable, breeding pairs. That's what we care about.
Absolutely.
But it was just a massive cross-country skiing expedition.
Yeah.
And my quads are shredded right now.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you what.
Yeah, my VO2 max is through the roof.
I had to take a wheelchair into the studio this morning.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah,
because
grinding.
the grind never stops.
Yeah, absolutely.
See, other students, they're slouching, but Dan and I, we're in here.
Yeah, our quads
working.
are shredded. Our brains are shredded with knowledge.
Right.
And
Swole
we're going to share
brain,
some of that knowledge with you
swole
guys.
life. Yeah, so just quick shout out. The previous show that was just on, that's one of our favorites. That was Afternoon Delight with Mary and Leo. Another great pair of DJs. Almost close to rivaling the Sam and Dan show in their popularity, but they're up there.
Yeah, they're definitely a show that's on here.
Right. Top 10 for sure.
Yeah.
And so we just appreciate, all the other artists at WXJM and the work they put in.
Yeah.
And most importantly, we appreciate our fans.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening, everybody. Hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.
Anyways, the reason we brought up our Yeti venture over the course of this week is because while we were out there, we stopped over in a few of those Scandinavian countries, including Iceland. And in Iceland, we gathered some stories, some tales from the locals there that were truly mind-boggling. And so, of course, Sam and I, we decided to do our own sort of research into some of these topics to, determine just how valid these are.
Mm-hmm.
And
really get to the roots.
Yeah, absolutely.
The cold, permafrosted roots. Similar to frosted tips, but, the roots.
Not as cool, though. Frosted tips are truly original. They should be making a comeback
any day now.
Yeah.
I'm saying by 2031, frosted tips are going to be on everybody's hair list.
I would say, if you're listening to this, preemptively frost your tips, and you'll be the coolest guy before everybody else.
Right, if that's your style.
Yeah.
Just get a leg up. All right, so for those who don't know, Iceland, a pretty small geographic area, but, very rich history, very rich in natural resources like whales and seals and snow.
Just loaded with seals.
World's biggest snow cone exporter behind Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that right, Dan?
Yeah, that's definitely a fact that is true about Iceland.
It's called Iceland for a reason, and it's because of all their delicious ice, fresh shaved ice.
Yeah, and contrary to popular belief, Iceland and Greenland is not the same place. We thought that originally we thought we were going to Greenland, but it turns out it was actually Iceland. We spent a long time in Greenland, just sort of wandering, but that was terrible.
Oh yeah, big empty expanse, big whole lot of nothing out there, really.
Yeah.
Similar to Iceland, except a million times worse, really.
Yeah.
Nothing going on.
All the bad parts of Iceland put into an even bigger island. So,
Right. It's kind of the essential oils of Iceland. You take the small parts, a small dilution, and add it to a larger quantity, and boom, there you go. It's more powerful somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. Some sort of magic.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of magic, that's what drew us to Iceland, really. Mm-hmm. It's just the natural magic and power of the landscape there. So it's cold, nearly inhospitable, but, it's got beautiful, untouched natural landscapes. We got glaciers. We got rock formations. We got windswept fields of ice and snow. Mountains that are awesome. Active and dormant volcanoes. All sorts of geological activity, all close to the magnetic North Pole.
Yeah, absolutely. Big source of power.
Huge power.
Along with, of course, there's so many seals there. That's also a lot of power. I know a lot of Iceland's powered by seals. Seals, much in the same way hamsters run on wheels, they'll run on wheels as well. Produce a fair amount of power. Also,
certain seals, they'll put a copper beach ball on their nose, and the spinning generates electricity.
Yeah.
As the seal spins the beach ball on its nose.
It can spin it indefinitely. So it's sort of a clean, infinite energy. And also, there's a lot of mink whales out there.
Thousands of years ahead of us in alternative seal energy.
Truly, truly. But they have no Walmarts, so they're like 3,000 years behind us in terms of
Walmart colonization.
Yeah.
So, real fact here, there is not a single Walmart in all of Iceland.
Mm-hmm.
So
we checked every inch of it.
Pretty surprising. Couldn't get any of that great value anywhere. But we made it back in one piece, so maybe they're doing something right.
Yeah, very true. Anyways, we've talked a lot about Iceland in general, but let me just say, Iceland truly is a magical place. While we were there, we stumbled across some ancient runes, and if you guys don't know what that is, it's sort of like symbols carved into rocks, or really carved into anything, and it gives that thing magical properties. And anyways, we brought these back for some of our interns to analyze, and they sort of troubleshooted for a while, and they came up, we ran across some runes that kill your neighbor's cattle.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and there's some runes that make girls love you.
Well,
of course, we don't need those.
I've got a rune. Just call my phone number.
Yeah.
Boom.
What?
All right, that was a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
But that does remind me, this talk of runes, we'll get back to more of the more potent runes that we've got.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just great for identifying things. Really deep history. The Bluetooth logo is actually two runes mashed together.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys take a look at that on your cell phone, laptop, whatever, that's the creator of Bluetooth, Sir Walton Bluetooth. His initials in runes put together. It's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Additionally, Dan, I've got a question for you.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So why does the Icelandic Navy put barcodes on all their ships?
I don't know why.
So when they come back, they can Scandinavian.
Okay. Yeah. That's a joke by Sam.
All right. So, barcodes, another type of modern rune, you could say. Iceland's had a lot of lasting effects on our typography and just, magically enchanting stuff. So,
oh, yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything, did you see any runes in our database? I know I've been drawing runes. A big one is that S, where you got 3 lines going across and then 3 lines going across and do all the diagonal lines. That one's got great, immense power. It's been said to accelerate learning in elementary school children.
Yeah, absolutely. Really powerful rune. There's a lot of these runes that we stumbled across are really just for simple things. Mm-hmm. There's one that wards off foxes. I guess I got a lot of fox problems.
I could use that on, when I'm out in the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
Foxes eating my chickens, just blast a rune on my fence and no more foxes.
There's one that staves against witchcraft, which I think is slightly ironic considering you're using some magic to keep witches away.
You got to fight fire with fire sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what they say, the sharpest iron makes more sharp iron.
There's also one for the lawyers out there. It just says the rune just lets you win in court. So I guess you carve that into your client, I guess, and you win, or the judge, perhaps, or
maybe you just scrape it into the desk underneath when the judge isn't looking.
Yeah, and you just win, or you show it to him, and then he says you win.
Pull it out of a card in your wallet.
Yeah.
Instant escape from court. It's like a get-out-of-jail-free card, but preemptive because you're not actually in jail at that point.
Absolutely.
So you know what they say: ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Mm-hmm.
And instantly win in court runes. That'd be pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, I think one you missed, really popular rune. It's for armor trimming. So I know some runes give you free armor trimming, but if anyone's offering that to you here in the U.S., be wary of that.
Yeah, don't trust them.
Probably
don't
a
trust
scam.
them.
Probably not accredited armor trimmers.
Getting that
with
sick
runes.
gold armor trim, you might think it'd be worth it because you see those guys rolling around, they got full rune gold trim armor, but it's really not. The stats don't increase at all.
Right. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Of course, we're talking about real life still. So, I think we've talked enough about general magic type things. Why don't we dive into the real meat of the show, which
Right.
are...
Without any further delay.
Yeah.
Except in a few minutes, we're going to have to toss out a PSA.
Yeah, so there will be a little bit of delay, but...
Slight delay.
Yeah.
Maybe we could just keep talking until it's time to play the PSA. Or not. Let's just get into it.
Yeah,
All
let's
right.
just get into
so,
it.
all interesting fact, from surveys over the generations, there's really like a long-term study of the people of Iceland, but only 10% of Icelanders deny the existence of powerful magic creatures and cohabitating on that icy rock that they also call home.
And let me just say this. When you got 10 people who do not deny, that means that... if you got 10 people who... What would it say? 10% of people who deny the existence of these myths? That means 90% of the people do not deny the existence of these myths.
So by extension, they're accepting the fact that these are not myths.
Yeah.
Because if 90% believe that they're in fact truth, is it really a myth?
No, it's not. It's fact.
If I tell you my car can go 300 miles an hour and you believe me,
I believe you.
Isn't that fact?
That's
now?
fact
It's
now
no longer
because
a myth.
we said it over the airwaves, and that's what makes it fact.
Right. So you can't argue with that logic, really. It's just one if P then Q, Q equals NRT.
Yeah. Something mass length times width.
Right. It's just logic, folks. And that's the stuff we've got going on here.
That's
at the
really
WX
what the
Jam
interns
Studios.
are for, So anyways,
10%, tiny number. Tiny number.
What we're basically getting at, there's a lot of magic in Iceland. And we're going to get into some of the creatures and some of the, I guess you could call them magical items that we not only stumbled across in Iceland, but we've heard stories of, and through our research, a lot of these things we stumble on in multiple sources, which really, adds credence to the claims made by some of the people we ran into. So we're going to hit you with a quick PSA, and then we're going to get right into it.
Hey, there's my son. You've been in your room all morning.
Hey, Dad.
Matt, what's wrong with your voice?
There is nothing wrong with...
Has it been this long?
Okay, folks, there seem to be some technical difficulties. Not sure what's going on. I think this mouse in the studio is out of batteries, so I'm going to have my cat go fetch another one for us, and we'll get right back to the swing of things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the time is now 6:15. The clock in the studio is also wrong.
Yeah. Very, very wrong.
This sundial really needs a new polish or something.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just out of whack by at least 10 minutes. Okay, so as we were saying, 10% deny the existence of the powerful creatures. That means, folks, listen up. That means there are more left-handed people in Iceland than there are doubters, or as people call them these days, haters.
Yeah.
There's more left-handed people than there are haters.
Yeah,
so,
and I gotta say, and all the time we spent in Iceland, we did not run into many haters, which is not something we can say about here because we're always running into haters here.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a real treat, I have to say.
They
Anyways,
make us famous, and that's what they're there for.
We said that we hit you with some of the meat, and we're gonna do that right now. Let's start off with, I'll try to pronounce this as Icelandically as possible. Nabrok. Nabrok.
That was good.
Yeah,
that sounds good to me.
Yeah. Now, Nabrok is, in English, it's translated to necro pants.
Mm-hmm. Pants.
Mm-hmm. corpse trousers or underpants, another translation. And so basically what this is, you get permission from one of your neighbors, after he passes away. You say, hey, you're not going to be using the skin on your legs. So may I use it and turn it into a pair of trousers, which I may wear, and which will collect wealth throughout my life. And the man says yes. Yes.
Right. Because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. You're just trying to help your neighbor out, and you're not going to be using your skin anymore after you're gone.
Right. It's really just kind of a very economical form of organ donation.
Yeah. Skin is the largest organ.
That's true.
So write that down.
78% water, folks.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, so how this thing works, there's a ritual involved in creating these necropants. And, folks, let me just say this. However you're imagining necropants, it's probably correct. It really is. We have a picture of a pair here that we stumbled across, and it's really just skin in the shape of pants.
It's really something
to
behold.
It takes getting into another person's skin to a whole new level. Walk a mile in their skin instead of shoes in this situation. But again, like we're saying, the entire point of the necropants, it's sort of like a bank, because Icelandic people, they're famous. They don't trust the banks,
Right. Ever heard of the Bank of Iceland?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Neither have we.
It's not a thing, folks. It's just not out there.
So as you're walking around wearing these necropants, and of course, let me specify, if you're wearing necropants, you're not allowed to wear any pants over them, even though you'll look really gross. It's part of the magic. People have to see it, and they know that this man's wearing necropants. Anyways, as you're walking around, you'll find that spare change that people have left on the ground. It slides towards you, a sort of magnetic pull, and it'll coalesce in your necropants.
Right. So it's important to note that these are a man's pants. They can only be made from the skin of a man.
Yes.
So
yes.
If you're imagining the image here, it makes perfect sense because there's a pouch that sort of would be used for storing coins. So you place a single sacred coin in there. You got to steal it from a poor widow and place it in there with a magical sign written on a piece of paper, one of these runes. We got the rune right here. It looks pretty nifty.
Yeah, it's cool.
So you wrap that coin in that paper up, put it in the pouch, and like Dan said, wealth will just be drawn to it. And as long as that original coin and that paper are never taken out, it's just going to keep collecting wealth. And that is really just kind of a dream come true for a lot of us. Because, if you're just sitting around, just bumming out, quite literally, that
you're just making money from doing nothing.
Right. You're raking in the dough with zero effort. Well, some effort in the setup. Think of the necropants as a sort of like venture capitalist banking scheme where you're making smart investments early on. And as long as you never take out that investment, much like a 401k, it's just going to keep increasing in value.
Forever. And again, let me go back and say, the original coin that must be put in the skin pocket, it has to be from a poor widow. You can't just go to let's say, the wife of a doctor. The doctor recently passed away, and you have a widow there. You can't go to her and ask her money because she's probably flush with cash.
Right. It's got to be one of the last pennies out of this poor woman's coin purse.
Absolutely. What you got to do, you find a widow maybe on the street begging for money, and when someone tosses her a coin, you sort of intercept it, and that should do it. That's how people in Iceland described how it should be done. And of course, they detailed it in vivid detail, and some people showed us. There's a lot of very poor widows out there. But I guess if you really want the necropants, then it's worth it. And nothing says you can't give them some of the money that you've collected in your sack.
Right, as long as you don't remove the original coin.
Oh yeah, of course. Of course.
It's kind of like butterfly catching. You got to catch that one. And that's your prized possession. And any butterflies past that, you can share with the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's important to note that unlimited money for not a lot of work on someone else's off the skin of their back or legs.
Yeah.
In this situation, that seems kind of unethical in the cosmic scheme of things. So, in stipulation is that you're cursed to eternal damnation, if you make the necropants, unless you convince someone else to take ownership of the pants. And now this kind of works like a seesaw approach, where one person has to simultaneously step out of the pants as the other person steps into the pants. So you will be taking your pants off in front of a stranger, and there will be two pantsless men next to each other for a short amount of time. And, some people just can't handle that.
No.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
But for the unlimited money, I mean, sometimes you just got to put your pride by your side.
Mm-hmm.
And, so you get them to step into the necropants one leg at a time, and thus they will keep their money-gathering nature for generations to come.
And, of course, you are not eternally damned, which is a good caveat, I'd say.
Right. Big plus.
Yeah.
I'd say worth it.
Yeah, more or less. But there's a lot of money that could fill up in there, too, so keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's one of the most interesting sort of magical items we found out there. And I guess we'll move from there to a sort of a creature, I guess you could say. It's called, I don't know if I can pronounce this correctly.
Mm-hmm. Give it your best shot.
1 second. Lagarflejot worm. Lagarflejot worm.
That sounds almost French. That was pretty good.
So it could have been French. But again, it's in Iceland.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you give it a try, Sam? You seem to nail these Icelandic.
All right. So as an understudy of the German language, I've picked up a little bit of that, Western European sort of dialect.
Oh yeah.
So I'm gonna get Lagerflecht.
Ooh, that was clean. That was crisp.
That's my
That came out sounding
interpretation
good.
of it. Also known as the Lagerflechtssummer.
Lagarflejot worm.
Or simply, in plain English, the Iceland worm monster.
Not as cool as Lagarflejot. But again, it's simpler. And that's what we Americans do. We like a little bit of simplicity.
From what I'm getting from this, it looks like it's kind of a distant relative of the Alaskan bullworm, which only has an English name.
Yeah.
But, very similar. Giant worms.
Truly terrifying giant worms.
Oh, yeah.
Alaskan bullworm, I would say probably a little scarier than this worm. Alaskan bullworm, of course, voracious appetite. Wreaked havoc on Bikini Bottom. This worm... it sort of stays in the lake that it lives in, which of course is Lake Lagarflejot.
Right, the one and only.
Yeah, the beautiful, beautiful Lagarflejot lake. So this creature, people have been logging sightings of it since 1345. Extremely long time. Actually, these sightings go back even earlier than Nessie or Champ or any of those sort of creatures.
Right.
Extremely interesting.
And you're in hot water, so to speak. Now I'm not sure if Lake Lagarflejot is actually hot water. I mean, it might be cold, but there's a lot of geothermal activity in Iceland. But that aside, you're in hot water, metaphorically and literally, when the worms in your area are too big for the biggest birds to eat, because that is just not a good place to be in.
No, very dangerous.
Economically, socially, financially, you just don't want big worms flying around.
No, you don't.
Because they just don't do anything really useful for society besides perhaps purified dirt. But Iceland is mostly rock. So, again, useless worm.
Mm-hmm. So, let me say, in this lake Lagerflute, this lake, it's all fresh water. It's below sea level. It's created by glaciers melting into it. Is it possible that some sort of creature which was frozen in glaciers years ago, maybe back in the 1300s when people first started seeing it, was sort of de-thawed and fell into the lake, and now, there's no predators who can take on such a creature, such a large worm. The worm has been said to be almost 40 feet long.
That's a pretty big worm. I wouldn't take that on.
No, nothing. I can't think of a single creature that could take on such a large worm.
What about maybe like an elephant? You think an elephant could do it?
If an elephant had a beak and wings and was a giant bird, maybe.
Yeah, unfortunately, elephants are not native to Iceland.
Mm-hmm.
You would be hard-pressed to find any elephants up there. Hannibal, famous for bringing elephants over the Alps, but, the Alps are nothing compared to the Atlantic Ocean. That's just not going to happen. So, yeah, pretty dangerous monster. So, it looks like, as old as this mystery is, Dan, it looks like in the database, I'm bringing up some some recent sightings. So
Okay.
I'm going to filter by most recent.
All right.
It looks like in 1963, the head of the Icelandic National Forest Service.
63.
Yep.
Okay.
So not just some
Not some schmuck.
right.
you
This guy, the head of the Forest Service.
Yeah.
And believe me, they have immense forests there. So this guy's qualified.
The head of the Forest Service there is pretty much their president.
Mm-hmm.
So
Almost one and the same. Anyways, he goes by the name Sigurðar Blónadal.
it's Sigourney Baloney. I think that's his
Mhm.
English translation.
Sigourney Blarney.
Yeah.
He spotted the worm several times
Mm.
throughout his career. And it was once again discovered in 1983 when telephone companies attempting to connect Iceland, there was a large shifting mass under the lake where they were laying their cable. And they found that when they retrieved the phone cable later, it was damaged. And they retrieved it, and they found it was broken where it had lain over the shifting mass.
Da-na.
Yep. So there's a quote from one of the contractors. This cable was specially engineered so it wouldn't kink and was wound in several places and badly torn and damaged in 22 different places. I believe we dragged the cable directly over the belly of the beast unless it was through its mouth.
Wow. That's
So unkinkable cable, very kinked up
Mhm.
and destroyed
and destroyed
in over 22 places.
just from rubbing over the belly of this beast, or unless, of course, it was the mouth, as the man says.
Right.
Uh,
That's just crazy. The amount of damage to phone lines
Mhm.
is just unprecedented.
And let me also say, there has been recordings of this creature coming onto land. It likes to hang out in trees, which I imagine if a 40-foot creature likes to hang out in trees, the trees there must be immense, truly immense in size.
Mhm.
And anyways, it likes to come onto land. It likes to eat cattle and spit acid and poison at cattle too. Not eating them, just taking them out for no real reason. Truly a masochistic creature.
With no soul.
Yeah.
Just pure evil.
Mm-hmm. That is, a lot of times we say these monsters are misunderstood, but the sauerkraut worm is truly evil through and through.
Very well understood and a known threat.
Yeah, very much so.
So, speaking of known stuff going on, the time is now 6:30.
What a transition, baby.
Yeah, I've been working on my transition, folks. So, time now for promo, 6:30. March 29th. Oh, that passed. March 30th also passed. All right, the big one.
We're in
So,
April.
you might want to be sitting down for this. If you're in a car, make sure you're buckled up.
Mm-hmm. Make sure you're in cruise control.
Right. Because Friday, April 6th and Saturday, April 7th, we have, drum roll please, Mac Rock XXI. Woo!
Yeehaw.
So we're going to be featuring The Royal They, The Sound of Ceres, Cassilus, Negative Gemini, Battlemaster, McKinley Dixon, and many, many more.
It's
So-
going to be a wild time, folks.
Right. That is just an all-star cast for an all-star production made by very capable and knowledgeable staff here at WXJM.
Mhm.
They're hosting a lot of the festivities. I'm really excited about it. I'm going to be there. People of the Valley, if you've got time to check that out, I would recommend you check that out if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'll be there also, folks. It should be a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else going on?
Looks like there's something on April 4th.
Let me see. April 4th. Okay. At Lon Lon Ranch, we got rye pines. I want to say this is Blue Hain and Kelvin Cadella. That's tonight at Lon Lon Ranch.
Oh, wow, that is tonight.
Yeah, I apologize for the name pronunciation. This is written in cursive.
In red pen.
Which I cannot read. My mind is just so full of dense cryptid, and I guess you could say conspiracy type information, which really I prefer to focus on the facts. But anyways, my mind is so full of that sort of information. I had to dump some stuff. Cursive, of course, was included in this, and I'd say it's definitely worth the trade-off. So, of course, you listen to the Sam and Dan Show, WXJM Harrisonburg, every Wednesday, 6 to 7, 88.7 on your FM dial.
Mm-hmm. Also available to stream on WXJM.org.
Yeehaw.
Also, a little maintenance update before we jump back into it, Dan.
Oh, yeah.
We're working on getting the phone lines patched in through. I know there's something we've been promising to the fans for a while.
Ever since we got a show.
Believe me, it's not an empty promise. We're working as hard as we can. The station engineers, they just need to connect the last couple cables.
We just talked with the station engineer right before the show, too.
Mm-hmm. So there's fresh, current information, which is the only thing we deliver to the airwaves.
Yeah.
Factual, fresh, frequent.
Intern-powered.
Every flippin' Wednesday. I think that's an okay word to use.
I think flippin's okay. Just this once, though. You're only allowed to use it once.
Right. I was going for F's. But yeah, fresh knowledge every Wednesday. And, I'm just really excited about that. And another thing I'm excited about is the next creature.
Oh, yeah. This is
on the island of Iceland.
This creature right here is probably the most magnificent beast I've ever read about or researched. It's something that when Sam and I first heard about it, we perked up. And,
right.
Hearing tales about it, truly, truly amazing creature. That, of course, is the Tilbury. Now, Sam, do you want to describe what this sort of creature looks like?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so this one's a doozy, folks. The Tilbury, this is what really inspired our trip over to Iceland in the first place.
Besides the Yetis.
Which
was the main one.
This was a strong number 2 contender. This is the Tilbury, the milk-sucking demon. So these things are absolutely horrible-looking creatures.
Yeah.
Their external appearance, they look like a gross, matted, crocheted wool. Just disgusting. Like the sort of lint you pull out of your dryer if you forget to clean it after about 10 cycles.
Year.
Yeah. Something crazy like that. It just looks absolutely rancid.
Yeah, it's got a big sucker on its face. I guess you could call it its face.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if it has eyes. It just has some kind of
it looks like it's got some
suction.
sort of slits. And, of course, we have a picture.
Oh, it's got eyes.
Okay. It does have eyes. We have some pictures given to us by a real witch of Iceland. She dug through some of her notes from some of the past witches, and she, of course, sent it back home with us to translate into English. And so we're going to be reading through some of those and really just talking about this fantastical creature. Now, Sam, could you tell us why exactly has the Tilbury been given the name the milk-suckling demon?
Well, I mean, despite looking like the bottom of a vacuum that just sucked up a bunch of hair, this thing's actually quite mobile. And what it's used for, it's created. This isn't a naturally occurring creature. Is made. It's created to collect milk from neighboring farms. So that's the secret. What I love about the Icelandic folklore is that they're just all about efficiency up there.
Really? Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, why do these menial tasks like get a job or collect milk when you can use dark magic to accomplish the task for you?
And folks, let me just say there are a lot of Icelandic creatures, a truly alarming amount, and magic spells that focus on the stealing of milk from your neighbor. It's truly incredible how much milk is being stolen over there. And
it's an epidemic, folks.
It's incredible. Really, I've never experienced anything like it. Milk over there is like gold, and
just like butter. It's you could say it's like liquid gold before it becomes gold.
Yeah. Yeah.
The butter being the actual gold.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I wonder why that is. Why does butter turn from white to yellow when it's made from milk and butter?
White to yellow.
Right. Well, the milk and the cream starts out white, and then the butter is yellow.
Well, I think milk, it gets like watered down with stuff, right? So it's and then like butter is just like the milk fat, or like really well churned milk so much that I don't know. I don't know the science behind this.
I see what you're saying, but believe us, on every other topic, we are the science experts, folks.
Yeah.
So back on track. That's Tilbury, known for stealing milk, and
a real milk thief.
Right. So men get the necropants, but only women can create the Tilbury.
Yeah.
There's actually a couple regional variants. We're not going to get into that, but based on what side of the border you're on in Iceland, you'll have a different kind of Tilbury.
Tilbury, Snekker, they all do the same thing. They're always sucking milk.
Right. From other cows, ewes.
Mm-hmm.
And what the Tilbury does, it returns to the window of the creator of the Tilbury and it cries out, "Full belly, mummy." And
full belly, mummy.
Yeah, so it has a British accent for some reason.
Oi, full belly, mummy, yeah.
And even though it's from Iceland, I don't really get that.
Yeah,
But I guess that's just what Tilburys do.
Mm.
And maybe they're into, Shakespeare fans. And then once they say that, they vomit the stolen milk into a butter churn.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they can make butter from that. And it actually starts off, a big perk of having your Tilbury collect milk is that the butter coagulates in its stomach a little bit. So you already got some butter chunks to start off with. So, you only have to do like half the work, really. Pretty practical creature to have around.
Extremely. And let me also say, not only does the Tilbury say full belly mummy, it also says chumlet off mummy too. Again, those are the only two things it can say. Yeah. Oh,
churn of the butter churn.
Oh, that makes sense. The R and the N, they're so close together nowadays.
Kerning, folks, it's important. Remember that.
Anyways, why don't we get into how you create one of these Tilbury? Because I think that's it's crucial to understanding what the creature is and how it looks, and all that. Anyways, so again, as we said, Tilbury only can be made by a woman. What you have to do, you gotta steal a rib from a recently buried body on Whit Sunday, which is it's Icelandic for Pentecost. Pentecost, that's it.
Right, on the 7th Sunday after Easter.
Mm-hmm. And anyways, so you get this rib from this recently deceased person. Doesn't have to be a man or a woman. And you wrap it in wool. And of course, it's important to add that this wool that you wrap it in, it has to be stolen.
Gotta be stolen from a poor widow.
Yeah. It says right here, the wool has to be plucked from between the shoulders of a widow's sheep soon after its wool has been plucked. So you got to find yourself the poorest widow in town. Not only do you have to snag, the money that she's barely scrounging up, you got to get your girlfriend to come by and steal all her wool, wrap it around that rib that you stole. And anyways, once you do that, this part takes a little bit of dedication and some time, as all things do. 3 Sundays in a row, when you go to communion, you go to church, they give you some wine to drink. You got to spit the wine.
Yep.
Onto your wool-covered rib.
You got to mommy bird that onto mommy bird, baby bird on the Tilbury with the communion wine.
Yeah. It's just part of the magic. And then, of course, after you've done that, it'll come alive, but it's not ready to start stealing milk just yet. At that point, you'll grow a little wart on the inside of your thigh, which the Tilbury will attach to and grow strong and milk milk stealing
Right. Truly a horrific creature.
Yeah.
So That's why a lot of old-timey witches used to wear long skirts, so they could conceal the Tolbiri swinging low between their legs.
Absolutely. Swing low, sweet chariots, you know?
Exactly. So, yeah, once the Tolbiri is strong and healthy, that thing, I mean, it may look goofy, but it's got a top speed of very fast. It bounds along the Icelandic landscape like a slinky going end to end.
Yeah.
Because it's basically like a 3-foot-long tube shape.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like we're getting a call, so
Yeah.
I will...
I'll take this from here. As Sam was saying, we have multiple accounts of people mentioning just how fast the Tolbiri is. Of course, it rolls sort of like a slinky, and you can imagine when it gets onto, or when it gets onto the neighbor's farm or, the neighbor's goat pasture or whatever, it'll climb upon the back of either the goat or the cow, and it'll sort of wrap around. And it'll attach to the udder of the creature and absorb its milk, suckle its milk out. And then, of course, as we already said, it'll return home, and of course, say the classic full belly mommy. And then it'll blast that straight into the churner. And then you can get churning with some of that stolen milk. So what was the caller up to?
All right, so that was one of our guest experts in the field. Unfortunately, I have short-term memory loss. I forgot the first word he said. But it's the ancient Nordic art of casting runes to predict the future. And it's similar to tarot, which we talk about in a previous show, but using the power of runes on bones. So can you look that up in the database? Is there any information on that?
Yeah, let me see what I can pull up here.
Rune casting.
Okay. Rune casting.
Mm-hmm.
Runic magic.
Runestone casting. Vikings.
All right. There we go. Yeah, we got some of the interns cranking through. Our computers, they're powered by interns running on big hamster wheels. So they have to work extra hard out there.
So we might upgrade to seals soon.
Yeah.
We brought a couple back with us. They're stinking this place up. It smells like fish. Lots of barking and lots of flopping.
Yeah. I mean, they're cute, though. They're pretty cute. And also, talking about seals, I guess we could throw this in really quick. While we were in Iceland, we got to enjoy a delicacy there. Something that I know Sam has been talking about a lot. Do you remember what it's called, or?
I'm gonna need to bring that up.
Okay.
So just a second.
I'll talk about sort of a synopsis of what it is. So basically, you have a dead seal, and you stuff its skin with the.
I got it.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Take
So
it away.
this is called kiviak, which is a traditional Inuit food from Greenland. Pretty similar to Iceland. They share a lot of culinary similarities.
Again, not the same though. But very similar.
Right. They're very geographically synchronous, you could say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so they stuff a seal skin with auks, which are a small bird-like, penguin-like bird.
If you guys have seen the new Star Wars movie, imagine those little creatures. Very similar.
Right, just like those guys, the pongos.
Pogos or...
Popos?
I don't know what they are.
Some sort of creature. Anyway, and then they get a fermented seal skin. So they can stuff up to 500 of these little birds inside one seal skin. Mm-hmm. They seal it with seal fat to keep the flies away, obviously, because everyone knows flies don't like seal fat.
They hate it.
All right, absolute worst. And then they hide the stuffed seal in a heap of stones and then place a large rock on top to keep all the air out. And over the course of 3 months, of course, this is a long process because patience breeds excellence. And the birds ferment inside the sealskin and are eaten in the winter. And the taste of kiviak is similar to that of a strong gorgonzola cheese.
Yeah.
So
really, when we tried it, not bad. Spread that on some toast.
Pretty delicious.
Yeah.
It smells about as good as you would imagine. But, once everything just kind of dissolves inside the sealskin.
It melts in your mouth.
It's like a soup.
Anyways, the time is now 6:46. And that means that it's time for a little bit of weather. So right now in the Berg, it's about 45 degrees out. It's sunny, though, which is nice. Winds at about 17 miles an hour. Pretty windy, as anybody who's been outside could tell you today. Thursday.
Oh, it's windy out there.
Yeah.
Believe me.
Thursday, though, we're looking at high of 52, and it's going to be sunny all day. Real treat. Friday, partially cloudy, high of 64, though. But after that, things they deteriorate quickly. Saturday.
It looks like Iceland has followed us back.
Yeah. Saturday, we got some rain and some snow. High of 43, low of 21. Sunday, back to partially cloudy. Only high of a 41, though. Monday, again, we got some snow. We got some rain. 42 is the high, 35 is the low. And it looks for the rest of next week, we're going to be looking at mixture between partially cloudy and sunny for the rest of the week. Low to mid 50s. Anyway, that's your weather report. And listen to the Sam and Dan Show. WXJM Harrisonburg, 88.7. Everyone say 6 to 7.
Thank you, Dan. That was an excellent weather report.
Thank you.
I think once we're done with the radio show here, maybe we can move on to reporting the weather on TV.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I think the people would deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
They need us out there on the streets, getting rained on, getting sunshine
Hit
on.
them with the real weather facts. Like,
right.
Where does rain come from?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know.
We just don't know.
Yeah, some sort of
It
government
falls
machine up there.
from the sky.
Yeah.
Just almost as if its own volition.
Or the Lord is crying. That too.
I've heard that before. Okay, so getting back to the mythos. What I think is interesting is that a lot of these creatures living in Iceland, they're very discouraging to bad behavior in children. So, you know, this is really awesome if you're a human being who's somehow managed through several lucky strikes to reach the adult age in Iceland, which is pretty awesome. Congrats.
It's truly an incredible accomplishment because I hate to interrupt you, Sam, but let me just reiterate just how dangerous Iceland truly is. You know, there's magic everywhere. There's ribs floating around, sucking milk out of everything. It's cold. You're eating an old fermented bird out of a dead seal.
The necropants just taking cash out of your pockets.
Yeah. Every widow in town being harassed constantly.
Right. It's
not
a rough
easy
place.
being a kid.
And all the hot geysers out there.
Yeah.
It could erupt at any second.
Any second. Volcanoes all over the island.
Just a massive falling a glacier somewhere. Just a fall down a crevasse. No one ever sees you again.
Yeah. So again, if you survive in Iceland through childhood, well done.
It's kind of like Iceland's sort of known as the Australia of the North. So to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear it called that all the time.
So, yeah, getting to adult age, that's a pretty big deal. An even bigger deal is somehow finding a way to have children of your own. Congrats on that. But, you know, the fact that these creatures just hunt down children with bad behavior, you know, not good if you are actually a child with bad behavior.
Mm.
So, you know, you got to kind of like learn quick out there, or nature will teach you to the school of hard knocks.
Oh, absolutely.
So
and,
you got to be on your toes.
Yeah, going off of this, you know, the dangerous land Iceland is for children. I'm gonna bring up two sort of I guess you could call them creatures. One is a group of creatures. One is a single creature, but they are interrelated. That we heard a lot about when we were in Iceland. Now that, of course, is Gryla, the giantess, and her Yule lads. You know, so Gryla, she's a giantess. She lives in the mountains of Iceland, and I guess you could say she. It says in our database that she frightens bad children, but she eats them. So, I mean, I guess you would have to frighten them at some point to eat them, but really, I think it should just say that she eats them because that's her main thing.
Right. I mean, the frightening is just a precursor to the children being eaten. So I think that just kind of goes without saying.
Yeah, I'd say that trumps it. That trumps the fear when you're about to be eaten by a giant old woman.
How giant are we talking? Because I know there are reports of over in Yif, one of the Icelandic cities, of just, you know, rocks. They're called the Giants of Iceland.
Yeah.
They're trolls. Well, they're trolls. They're not giants, but trolls and giants, pretty similar.
Yeah,
right?
very similar.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And, you know, they were out there pulling ships onto the stones to wreck them and steal their bounties of fish and seal and whale. and the trolls got stuck and turned into stone. So, those are pretty big rocks. So is Grayla taller than these rocks?
I would say definitely taller than these rocks. And so that would put her at, how would you estimate in freedom units how tall this creature would be? I could say she is significantly taller than the rocks, and she's got legs like a donkey and tail like a donkey as well.
Also like a donkey.
Yeah, very
I
donkey-esque.
guess that makes sense. If you're going to have a tail, it would be most similar to your legs than it would
Which
be
are
your arms.
donkey-like, yeah. Absolutely.
It's just pure logic.
Yeah.
It's understandable. But yeah, freedom units, maybe like 20 bananas tall, maybe even 25 bananas if we're talking big bananas.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like 35 if we're talking like smaller bananas.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me add in a really cool part of the story, I guess you could say. So Gryla, she's actually been married 3 times. And she's actually still married to her current husband right now. His name's Le Palu. Every time I do an accent, it turns into French. So
I think all accents are French
based
when you really
French based.
boil it down.
Yeah,
to
just like every soup is based in
water.
yes, or as yeah. Anyways, so Gryla, she's married, so there's hope for everybody.
Right, even if you're some 30 banana tall freak
with
who eats
donkey
children.
legs, there's a man out there for you. He might not be great, but there's a man. And of course, I think the best part about Gryla is she's got a bunch of children, which have also become quite legendary in Iceland. And they're, of course, the Yule lads, as in Yule tide, but replace tide with lads. So let's talk about some of those Yule lads, Sam.
All right. I'll bring this up in the database, some of our research notes collected.
Okay.
I'm flipping through this parchment that we've got. So, as you said, they're mischievous pranksters.
Absolutely.
The sons of Grayla. It's kind of hard to read. Smudged with seal fat in my notes here.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Seals are making a racket in here, too. We have them in studio. They're truly obnoxious.
Mm-hmm. So in modern times, they've got kind of a reputation as being a little more benevolent, such as Santa Claus. But back in the day, they were more like pranksters that would steal stuff. And they've got a lot of special, it's sort of like the 7 Dwarves sort of deal here.
Yeah.
Where they each have a character trait built into their name. And that's pretty much all they do.
They're highly specialized, and it's very efficient.
Right.
So
they know what they do, and they're going to do it. They're good at what they do.
They're going to do it well. And also, it's important to mention that each of these Yule lads, they arrive and they leave a home at the same dates each year, which I think is very interesting. Of course, they're highly specialized. They're extremely efficient. They're like a strike force that goes in there, and they get the job done. So let's talk about some of them, Sam.
All right. So the first one to arrive in their homes as scheduled, very mechanical scheduling, is Sheep Coat Cloth, also known as Tekjasjartur. And what he does, he harasses sheep, but he's impaired by his stiff peg legs.
Yeah.
So former pirate, perhaps. I don't know
lost
anyone else
both
with
his
peg
legs.
legs.
And, if you have one peg leg, you can be a pirate. But once you get down into having 2 peg legs, I think at that point you really lose a lot of function. And that's why he's the one outside harassing the goats, and he's not inside harassing the family like a lot of these other Yule lads are.
Right. He's just too slow.
Yeah.
Next, we got Gullygok, also known as Gilligjaguar.
It's like Gil and the Jaguar.
Gilly Jaguar.
Gil Jaguar.
And he hides in gullies, waiting for an opportunity to sneak into the cow pen and steal milk from the cows. So really, he's just kind of like a more mobile version of Tilbury.
Yeah. Not as effective because, of course, he doesn't bring the milk home to spit into a churn for you. He just steals the milk for himself. And again, milk is like gold over there, so that's a heavy hit when Gully Gawk shows up at your house with an empty pail. Anyways, after that, we got Stubby, also called Steffu. He's abnormally short, and he steals pans to eat the crust that's been left on him.
I do that in my own house. I see where he's coming from.
Here's the thing about Stubby, the Yule lad. He doesn't seem really evil as much as he seems. You know, the first description of him is abnormally short. I think he could just be a very short man who sneaks into your home to eat scraps off your pans.
Well, it says he steals the pan, and since stealing is always wrong.
Stealing is wrong. You're right. I stand corrected.
Unless you're stealing a base or perhaps taking a nap.
Yeah.
You know, that's good.
Those are legal and good, and we condone them.
But not stealing pans.
No. Okay, so we're not going to go through all of them. There's way too many to cover. But there's a couple ones that I think...
Just go through all the names. They're pretty self-explanatory, really.
Yeah, fair enough. So after Stubby, we got Spood Licker. Then we got Pot Scraper. There's Bowl Licker. Door Slammer. There's Skier Gobbler, which is a Yule lad with a great affinity for Skier. Do you have any idea what that is?
Yeah, Skier is it's an Icelandic yogurt, very popular. It's got a nice light taste similar to Greek yogurt.
Delicious.
But
0 fat, high in protein. That's what I hear.
Right, exactly. So, again, Skier Gobbler's motivation's pretty understandable.
Mm-hmm. He's just trying to get big, What other ones are there, Sam?
We got Sausage Swiper.
One of my favorites, Sausage Swiper.
The Window Peeper. Doorway Sniffer. I don't know what that's all about.
He sniffs doorways.
I guess interesting. Teach their own.
Yeah.
No, it takes all sorts of people.
Yeah.
Here we got Meat Hook. It says here he uses a hook to steal meat. That's pretty basic. And then Candle Stealer, which follows children in order to steal their candles. So, Dad, what were you going to say about the Sausage Swiper?
The interesting thing about Sausage Swiper, so Sausage Swiper, he hides in your rafters in your smokehouse. You lay out some big fat seal sausages, ready for smoking, and your kids are out hitting each other with sticks. All's good with the world. And then Sausage Swiper swoops down from the rafters and he grabs your sausages before they're even done being smoked. So really, he gets a bunch of raw sausages. And really, the thing about Sausage Swiper, he's not in it to eat your sausages. He just doesn't want you to have them, which I think is truly monstrous.
That's evil.
Yeah, he's considered to be the most fiendish of all the Yule lads, and for good reason, I'd say.
That makes sense to me. All right, so we're running out of time, folks. We only got a minute left, but we're going to try and hit this last point really quick.
Okay,
so
let's hit it.
Elves are the big one. So you would think we would talk about the biggest, most popular culture thing in Iceland, but nah.
Yeah, they're not as cool as the others.
Not as
They
interesting.
don't even steal that much milk.
It's just typical elves. They're called the Hodlfolk, which means hidden folk.
Mm-hmm.
So some people believe the elves hide among them, literally invisible, but the same size and dimensions as people. Other than that, basic elf stereotypes that
Pointy
you know and
ears.
love.
Yeah,
right.
live in gross wooden houses.
Mm-hmm. So legend says that you're not allowed to throw rocks in Iceland because you might accidentally hit their homes, which are invisible. So they could be anywhere, really.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of an idiom that people in glass houses shouldn't grow any moss. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or throw any rocks.
Yeah, grow any moss too, though.
Uh-huh.
Because then people will see all your moss and they'll want it.
Exactly.
So, be careful if you're growing moss.
Right. Moss is great.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a lot of good industrial uses.
Soft. It's
and
easier to
home
grow than
uses.
grass.
Mm-hmm. But all right, so the last point, we've got all these pieces coming together, and this is our research thesis from visiting Iceland, folks. We want to share this with you before we get dragged out of the studio.
Yeah, kicking and screaming.
So Iceland's very heavy on elves, right? Everyone's always talking about elves, building elf sanctuaries and elf churches, protecting elf homes. They're also very big on volcanoes, which are known for spewing out large clouds of ash and smoke, as if there's an invisible underground factory in production. And, because factories produce smoke. And if you were trying to hide your manufacturing operations under the guise of volcanoes.
Tax-free, I should say.
Right, out in the frozen north, way up north where it's always cold. There's only one other figure in history who have been known to do this besides Imperial Japan during World War II. And that was Santa Claus producing toys. So I believe if you were going to try and find Santa Claus, Iceland with his underground toy production, close to the North Pole.
And elves.
Reindeer. All the clues are there.
Mm-hmm.
It just works.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
we'll leave you with that, folks.
Yep, just chew on that.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, Sam and Dan Show. Signing off.
Every Wednesday, 6 to 7. This is WXJM Harrisonburg, 88.7 on your FM dial. Also available to stream on WXJM.org. And just a friendly reminder, MacRock is this Friday and Saturday. Really awesome event. A lot of work's been put into it. I would recommend you check that out if you're into that sort of thing.
Yep.
All right, we're signing off.
Peace.